Aloha everyone, what's going on my dudes? Welcome to another RuneScape news coverage video. For this video, we're going to discuss a Q&A that Jagex did today on live stream. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Let's go.
Cats is the illest. What you talking about, Willis?
Alright guys, for this video, Mod Hooli brought on mods Osborne and Pi to talk about a bunch of community questions, so let's jump into it. Starting off, I want to talk about the Elder Gods. So, Mod Osborne has said that the Elder God storyline will continue into next year. That said, they are planning on sprinkling a couple of quests here and there that are not related to Elder Gods, if you feel a little fatigued. That said, when they are finally eventually done with the Elder God War storyline, they do have a completely different direction that they do want to go with, which is a far left turn from gods, divine beings, that kind of thing. So seems like whatever the next storyline is once this is all said and done is going to be a little bit more grounded, more down to earth, which would be an interesting change of pace. That said, let's talk about the Elder God Wars dungeon, because that's the big thing that's coming right around the corner. Osborne addressed why it was released, or is going to be released in parts, as we're seeing in the next coming months. They want to hit multiple targets with this update. They didn't want to create yet another situation where you just have a bunch of massable and invincible bosses, where ultimately people just find the boss that they like the most and they just camp it anyways. What they wanted to do instead is create lots of content for lots of different types of players. Plus, if they came out with everything on one release, considering all the things that they are planning to come out with the Elder God Wars dungeon, it would be a massive cognitive load for the players. Plus, they want to do something new and make it feel like an escalating experience, like a war generally should feel like. And plus, it allows them to drop in smaller updates here in between the big releases, the forefronts. They did say that they are not chopping it up into pieces and releasing it separately. That's not at all the plan, and that each front will feel substantial and significant content in and of itself. So these are meaty updates and should not give the illusion that this was a larger update being fed to you in bite-sized pieces. Next up, I got a bunch of things related to combat to discuss with Mod Pi, so let's jump into that. In terms of the combat triangle, they said that they want to make it so that each combat style feels like it has its own unique gameplay. If you look at melee and you look at all the weapons, abilities that it has on offer, you create a lot of stacking damage all at once with the melee style, which ultimately leads to very good burst damage. Looking at range, you have a lot of abilities and ways to apply rapid, smaller hits to your target. This synergizes very well with things like your bolt procs and your ECB spec. Mage, however, has not found its identity yet, but there is a goal in mind that they're not yet ready to reveal. That said, they are happy with the new ancient magic spells, but they are still focused on buffing magic, and it's almost certain that magic is going to get a buff with the Elder God Wars dungeon. They did say that Mod Sponge is taking up some of Pi's Pi list updates, and among those, or what would likely be added to those, is buffs to the Saren spells because they are highly underperforming, so that is probably something we can look forward to in the future. And while they haven't specifically mentioned magic for this next part, they did say they are looking to improve special attacks, and certain ones are high priority. So take that with a grain of salt. They were asked about tank armor, and it is something that they are always looking to make desirable. The new ancient magic spell did help somewhat slightly with that. Only problem is it's extremely difficult for them as devs to do, especially for the top end level, because players will always choose what is more damage. So if you made tank armor also more damage, then you would just have the exact same problem, but in the opposite direction where power armor would really not have a use. So while it is something that they are always trying to keep in their minds to create incentives for using, it's no easy task. Now shifting gears, I want to touch on Grimoire pages, as this was recently updated to be added to the drop tables of the Lost Grove creatures. This is not something that was meant to be definitive or final. It was supposed to be a baby step, and they are definitely going to improve it. Players have voiced that they feel the drop rate is too low. Mod Pi said they are absolutely correct. So they are going to be monitoring it and then ultimately make them more common on these drop tables as time goes on. Reason why they added it to the Lost Grove creatures features instead of just adding more to Solak's drop table is because their data shows that not enough people do Solak to justify it, and the Lost Grove features are among the most completed Slayer tasks out of all of them. So once again, they're not done with it. Mod Ramen is going to continue working on it, so expect the drop rate to improve. Next, we have death costs. They recognize it is a problem and do want to do something about it. The whole death cost system was made at a time when certain levels of death costs were seen as a cap, but this is obviously no longer the case considering the cost of current best in slot gear. So they are looking to do some kind of fix, especially with the top end scaling, and they do say that it hurts the combat devs as well, not just the players, because it de-incentivizes players from using the more expensive gear, and the combat devs want you to take your best gear out and utilize it. So hopefully we get a change on that soon. Moving on, we got Hydrix bolt tips and by extension Onyx bolt tips. This is something that's going to be talked about Friday in the Combat Council when they have a meeting, and they want to make it more affordable and more accessible to a larger audience because they are extremely expensive to use, so they want to change that. However, it is something that they plan on changing twofold, which means they are going to address how powerful they currently are and how they come into the game. So that may or may not be a nerf to their effectiveness, but a buff to their accessibility. We're going to have to wait and see. Finally, the last thing for combat is they are still looking at the Raksha abilities. They aren't entirely satisfied with where they are at now and where they sit in the meta. ModPie specifically didn't want to emphasize Gricko. He said there are two other abilities that Raksha drops that do need to be looked at. So while that doesn't necessarily mean there will or won't be a nerf to Gricko, but it does seem very likely that there will be buffs to either Greater Chain or Divert. So we'll see. Moving on, for Halloween event and events in general, they are looking to make them more engaging going forward. Halloween specifically, this includes new mini quests, new characters, rewards. Old Halloween rewards will return as well, and they'll take this information going forward for the next Easter event because the one we had this year was missing a lot of incentive. So they're definitely aware of improvements that they could be making for those events. Next up, we got graphical reworks. Mod Osborne has said that they decided to take a different approach with this, and they want to follow the new player, updating areas that new players are likely to visit first. They do know the path or the journey that they want to take early game players through, and graphical reworks are going to reflect that. Mod Osborne did say that Varrock hadn't been updated since he had joined the company, which was about 15 years ago, so I wouldn't be surprised if Varrock is the next potential city to get a graphical rework. Winding down, I just want to touch on the Dagannoth King pets. The only thing left for their development right now is the chat heads, but there needs to be room in the schedule for them to work on. It's something that was always going to be in the cracks and never a high priority, so whenever an update comes out that needs the graphics team, those almost always take priority over the Dagannoth Kings, which is why we haven't seen it out yet. However, Mod Osborne says he does want it out this year, so I guess you could look forward to that. And finally, there are more hero items planned for the future, but it's not something they want to release on a regular basis. So I expect them to come out with a new skill or when a skill rework comes out, those kinds of things. So we'll see. And that's pretty much it for this live stream. Let me know what you think about anything in the comments below. Love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to wrap it up there. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed and you want to stay up to date on all things RuneScape related, hit that subscribe button. And I appreciate you watching. I am out. Aloha.